The First Descendant, should you play it or should you skip it? And that might seem like a simple question with a really easy answer because the game's free to play. Someone might say, look, just play it for yourself and decide if you want to continue. But the challenge with a game like The First Descendant is that you may risk a lot of your very precious game time peeling back the layers of the grind and the monetization only to discover a game that you wish you hadn't sunk a lot of hours into. And the game is certainly stepping into a landscape that is littered with failed attempts at the live service looter shooter genre. And it's coming from a company known for bad microtransactions. So on the surface, you may see a fun and addicting content loop with lots of characters to choose from and lots of enemies to shoot and piles of loot to comb over, but the devil is always in the details. And even though those details may land on each player differently, without a doubt, this is a free-to-play game that is stuffed with microtransactions. But do those optional purchases get in the way of good gameplay or good game design? There are cosmetics you can buy, characters you can buy or grind to unlock, weapons that can be researched, and then you can use actual money to expedite that research, and of course, there is a battle pass. And after a bunch of time in the game, I can honestly say there is good and bad elements to all of these things. You will have to weigh those pros and cons and decide if you can eat around the fat or if there's just too many deal breakers for you to stomach in the game. Now, every weekday here on Reforge Gaming, I tell you what I think about a gaming topic, and then we go into a live stream where I want to know what you think. So, if you want more content like this, hit like and subscribe. So up first, let's talk about the elephant in the room, all of the microtransactions. There is no denying it. The First Descendant has a lot of ways for you to spend money, from the character unlocks to the various Descendant skins you can buy, all the way down to individual colors for specific pieces of your armor. And within each of these categories, I believe there is both good and bad. So let's just start with the cosmetics. What are they doing that is good in the realm of the optional cosmetics? Well, first, every character has a nice spectrum of pricing options. There are skins as low as $2.50 or bundles as high as $38. Now, I'm not including the ultimate Descendants yet because I'm going to talk about that in the bad section with my thoughts on the cosmetics. And not every character even has an ultimate version right now anyway. But in the way of decorating your character, I think it is good to offer really inexpensive options for just a couple of dollars, and then you can move into the more standard pricing options that you might be familiar with, like $15 that you might see in another game. And obviously, there are really big bundles if you want to drop the cash. But this is where some of the good and the bad come together. The way colors work in this game will likely be viewed as the company just sort of nickel and diming the player, and I think it is definitely a mixture of good and bad. So the paint system is a one-time use system, meaning if you buy the color red, you can apply that to one piece of armor, and that's it. Now you can continue to switch where red shows up on that piece of armor, so it's basically bound to that piece. And if you want to get red for another piece of armor, you will have to buy red again and then apply it or bind it to that piece. Now, before you storm the castle gates with pitchforks, the individual purchase price of a color is 50 cents. And this is why I say there's good and bad ways to look at this. No doubt most are going to see this as bad, but I think offering cheaper ways to customize your character is a good thing. Most free-to-play models simply sell you a skin for $15 or $20, and that's the end of the matter. First Descendant let me buy a skin for $2.50 and then a couple of colors, and I'm still under $5 for just that one skin. But this is where the bad comes into play. Personally, I think the more expensive bundles should come with all of the colors unlocked. It makes sense why you would sell a skin for $2.50 and then have color adjustments for 50 cents. But if someone forks over $15 or $40 for a bundle, having to pay additional fees to customize the colors just feels scummy. This is an opportunity, I think, to create a clear divide. You could have low-cost skins that are sort of like a blank canvas, and then you could pay for the colors that you like, and then higher-cost bundles that just include all of the color options. Another criticism here is that you cannot add paint to the default skins. I think that would be a great way to show some goodwill to the players. You could allow them to spend, $1 to $2 and create a custom look for the default skin. Again, my view of cosmetics in a free-to-play game is that they are perfectly fine to sell, and offering lower cost options is a win for players versus everything being exorbitant. But I definitely don't like seeing high-priced bundles not include the paint colors as well as the default skins not being paintable. Now, this is closely related to how they handle weapon cosmetics, so let's talk about that. I see the weapon skins as mostly good, if I'm honest. Every skin that I have looked at in the weapon skin menu is acquired in the game and not sold. And they honestly look really good, in addition to the default weapon designs, I think, looking very strong as well. They do allow you to change the paint of these skins with the same system as the character armor. And similar to the armor, I wish they would just let you change the colors of the default weapon skins. I also wish every gun had a findable skin, as many weapons simply don't have one. Maybe they'll come later. Given how great the default weapons look and how nice the weapon skins look as well, and the fact that they're acquired in-game, I don't mind offering folks the option to customize each part of the gun for a fee. This again is based on my starting position that if it's a free-to-play game, you're just gonna charge for cosmetics. Now, you may disagree, and hopefully this info helps you make a decision. Keep in mind, you can completely ignore all these systems and just earn great skins for your guns without spending any money, and I think that's a win in a free-to-play looter shooter. Now, another thing you can spend money on is unlocking the characters. They give you 3 characters to choose from for free at the beginning: Lepic, Ajax, and Viessa. And yes, once you pick one of these, the other 2 characters are no longer free, so choose wisely, maybe watch some videos beforehand. All of these characters, I think the free ones, are fun to play in their own way. I think the very early in the campaign, they actually show you how researching a character works as well, so you get Bunny relatively quickly. And the rest of the characters do need to be researched after that, and this is where it can get confusing, because some of the characters are basically given to you and they're very easy to get. You just have to play through the campaign. Bunny, Freyna, Sharon, and Blair are all very straightforward. It tells you where to get each item and its corresponding drop rate, which is like either 20% or 100%, and most of the activities are just missions that you can rerun very quickly. But then all of the remaining characters are far more convoluted, and they don't make it hard to figure out. It just has more layers than, hey, go run this activity for this stabilizer. That's not how it works for the other characters. Let's use Ajax as an example. But remember, all the remaining characters that are not Bunny, Freyna, Sharon, and Blair, they're going to work just like Ajax, okay? Each of these characters, there are 3 purple components that have to be researched, and the items required for that research are all found in different places with very minimal overlap. A few of the resources had overlap, so you may get the 430 silicon from places that you might also get the compound coating material as well. So there were some missions where there was overlap. Now, once these resources are gathered, you can research each individual piece, and the wait time is like 8 minutes. And then you can farm the Ajax code in the Void Interceptor battles. So you basically go fight the boss battles hoping that the thing drops. Then you wait 16 hours for the Ajax research to complete, and you've got him. So you have to do this for any character after the free one that you choose and the 4 that they basically give you through the campaign. So 5 characters that are basically free just from playing, and all remaining require actual effort and attention to get. And I'll be honest, that doesn't seem bad from a grinding perspective. They tell you what you need and they tell you where to go get it. And a lot of these resources you will be earning just by playing through the game, because all the locations to get the resources are just missions from the locations as you're playing through the campaign. The big unknown right now is the drop rate. The items, they don't tell you the drop rate. There are ones that do, but the basic resources for the things that you find in the missions, they just come from supply boxes or munitions, meaning that the drop rate could be non-existent. Now, I walked through all of that to say, buying a character is honestly very reasonable given that the game is free to play, and they give you a free character at the start plus 4 through the campaign. Unlocking a slot for another Descendant is $1, and the Descendants themselves range from $6 to $12, and for some reason Eugen, the healer, he is $18. So from my perspective, this isn't really that unreasonable. If you play this game for free, If you like it enough to keep playing and grinding, and you watch enough videos and you decide which character that you want to main, it's very inexpensive to just buy that Descendant. And then you can go grind for the rest of them, since playing the game and grinding the missions and the intercept fights, well, that's how you engage with the game, and that's also how you research the characters. So I honestly feel like the character system is, again, both good and bad, depending on how you look at it. Then there is a battle pass, which is pretty standard as battle passes go. There are free items and then the premium items. The premium battle pass is $10, and you get 300 caliber by the end of the battle pass. That's actually $6 worth of caliber. So really, I think that's very reasonable, since you get a bunch of cosmetics and items, and you essentially get $6 back of the 10 that you spend. The only concern would be earn rate. I have about 10 hours in the game, and I've received maybe almost 5 items. So that's roughly an item every 2 hours. And most seasons are going to last 90 days. The current battle pass does have a shorter window, but based on my playtime, you would need to average about 15 hours a week during a 90-day season to get all the items, which is a little over 2 hours a day. So if my estimation and calculation is correct, this is pretty standard battle pass, standard requirements and function. I don't see anything really off with the battle pass. All right, the last microtransaction thing to talk about is the Ultimate Descendants, and I think the Ultimate Descendant pricing is the most egregious thing in the game with respect to microtransactions. Each Ult Descendant can be purchased for either $60 or $100. That is an individual Descendant. It's not all of them, it's one. I see absolutely no reason to buy these. If you want the skins, the pricing is not even remotely worth it. Yes, the skins look awesome in these Ult Descendant bundles, but it's not worth $60 or $100 in my estimation. If you want to have an amount of like slightly stronger versions of characters, again, $60 to $100 just seems like a complete joke as a price point. We have to call these Ultimate Descendants what they are, okay? They are whale food. They are simply here for a person who swipes their credit card faster than they want to shoot a weapon, and they need to be avoided. I truly hope they have poor sales numbers for the Ultimate Descendants, and that they focus their attention where I hope consumers would spend more of their money, which is just the cosmetics or maybe a new character. I think that's a better use of your money if you are going to engage with the game. At the end of the day, you can play this game for free, and there is truly a lot of content. Essentially, there's 5 free characters for you, and if you break down and you buy the battle pass for $10, and maybe you get, 6 of that back, honestly, and then maybe you buy 1 or 2 characters, you might spend $12 to maybe $24. So overall, even if you engage minimally with the spending in this game, you've barely spent half the cost of a full-price game, which obviously begs the question, how's the gameplay? When it comes to gameplay, your mileage may vary depending on a lot of things. Performance issues are a huge factor for a lot of players on PC right now, as well as console, and the character you choose can dramatically affect your experience. So first, let's talk about performance. My first day playing, I was overlooking the frame rate issues on PS5 because they just didn't seem to be that bothersome. But then I tried playing the PS4 version on my PS5, and performance mode was significantly more reliable. In fact, the difference made the issues with steady FPS far more noticeable when I played the PS5 version. Now, they have officially said that if you uninstall the game and then you reinstall it, if you're one of the people who preloaded the game, it can help with performance. Now, I noticed that it helped some, but there were still frame rate dips and there was stuttering. It was still very consistent. There are also lots of complaints on PC about performance as well. Currently, the game does not have a good score on Steam. It's climbing from the low 40s. It's now in the 50%. It actually has a much more favorable score on PlayStation, like an 88% and then like an 84% on Xbox. So it's doing well on console as far as I can tell for a free-to-play game that many people could quickly downvote because they don't like the micros or they don't like the gameplay. Usually when a game is free to play, it's hard to maintain a good score, which currently we're seeing results of that on Steam. Initially, there was a glitch where if you bought the currency in the game, it took almost 2 minutes for it to show up. So a lot of people thought that they had just gotten ripped off. They're like, hey, I spent money and didn't get anything. They requested refunds for the microtransactions, and then they gave it a thumbs down. You can't refund a free-to-play game, so all of those reviews counted. People that played for like a very small amount of time, bought currency, thought they got ripped off, and then walked away. Like if they would have refunded the game, they wouldn't have had their review count, but you can't refund a free game. So the devs have since issued XP boosts and other items as an apology, which that may be why the score is turning around, but server issues are happening right now. While I was recording this, I was trying to get B-roll and server issues started happening and crashes. Now, the one was because Microsoft servers went down, but then another outage happened as well. They were having well over 200,000 concurrent players on Steam before and after this was happening. So clearly people are playing and enjoying themselves, even though the score doesn't look to represent that. But when it comes to the gameplay and the loop, I think this game nails certain aspects while it also misses others. And it's largely character dependent. I tried SEMO, who is all about explosions and detonation, and after a few hours, I couldn't help but think that certain characters just are not built for the early game. Enemies die incredibly fast to gunfire, so if you play with a character like him, you end up holding all of your abilities until a big tanky enemy comes out. The abilities just take too long to throw on the ground and trigger, and rhythmically, they were not set up for fast environments or fast action, so you just waited, and then you would dump all of your abilities on the mini boss or the boss and do chunks of damage and then go back to shooting everything. This is why I think some people are saying that the game is boring and that you just shoot really weak enemies over and over, while other people are getting hooked. As soon as I switched to Kyle, everything changed. I was able to interweave my gunplay with abilities as opposed to it feeling very compartmentalized. I was basically punching everybody to get my magnetic meter filled up, and then I would use it as a shield or use it as a slam. It felt really good, so I wasn't just shooting enemy after enemy after enemy and then saving my ability for a boss. I was interweaving it throughout combat. My advice would be to use Lepic if you just want to play the game for free, because I think his abilities combine very well with gunplay. Viesa, same, I think, you can kind of interweave, and then Ajax is a little bit more defensive, but also I think they're just built for the early game. I think people are buying really cool looking characters based on their abilities, and then the early game just doesn't allow for those abilities to show up. You could try turning up the world difficulty, but that does require to clear the map first. So your initial play through these areas isn't going to feel good if you're on a character that feels built for maybe later in the game. I think the devs should have done a better job ensuring that all characters feel good in the early game, because as it stands, the campaign in the early gameplay loop seems very much built for the free characters, which is honestly a good thing. That means if you're playing for free, you're not going to be like, this is lame, I need to buy a character. You actually might have that experience if you spent money. I think that's a bad thing. If you end up spending money on somebody like SEMO because you're like, oh, I want to explode everything, and then you end up feeling like they're just a generic shooter, like he's not really built for those early engagements. The appeal of a game like this is the characters, and much like other games, I'm willing to bet some of the more impressive or fun-looking Descendants are going to be really strong in the mid to late game rather than the early game where you can pretty much just shoot everything. So much of what you do in the beginning in the content, it's really, I think, not that measured. It's not that challenging. It's just waves of cannon fodder trash ads. And it also comes down to, I think, what people enjoy. If you prefer to just shoot everything and save your abilities for the mini bosses or the bosses, you might like a character like the one that I was playing with. Overall, if this game hooks you, it will be with a character that you can sort of get into a flow state with. So my advice would be to watch a bunch of videos before picking a character, before buying a character. Even if you're just picking from the 3 free characters, I would, get an idea of which one that you might like. And same with Bunny, you get her relatively quick in the beginning of the game. So that's honestly my conclusion, is that it's really up to you. Can you eat around all that monetization that I outlined? I believe that you can. I only spent money to experiment with the systems. I could have easily just played this game with Lepic and had a blast. I was really having fun with him. That's what other people in my community are doing, and they're having a good time. They're dumping more hours into this game, and they've spent no money. But you may disagree. you may feel that there's just too many deal breakers, too many red flags to bother sinking any time into this game. And the good news is you really can play and test a lot of this game without spending a dime. And if you do tip over into the category of maybe you do want to spend some money, maybe you do want to unlock a character, it's pretty inexpensive. They've already announced that Season 1 will be late August. It'll run for 90 days. There'll be 3 updates during that season, likely 1 for each month of the season. There'll be a new Descendant, there'll be a new Descendant story, there'll be a new Colossus and dungeon, new weapon, new skin, and a new Ultimate Descendant. So right now I'm grinding, I'm enjoying myself, but I'm keeping my eyes close to that future to see if they keep this game in a tolerable lane or if they step out of line. But those are just my thoughts, and now it's time to hear your thoughts. You can do that in a comment below on this video or come into the live stream that we go to after that. It'll hit the card right here, as well as be in a pinned comment below. And if you like this content and you want more like it, please remember to like, share, and subscribe.